This is from the World Economic Forum. Do you want to dive into what this is about and why we should care?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think just getting straight into the meat of it, it's an interesting one because I think over the years we've just seen, I think the world deal with various different issues when it comes to living and of course, a growth in our population and let's say urbanization has kind of led to some interesting challenges being thrown up and this article was something that I found quite interesting because it coined a different terminology, and that being vertical urban mobility. I think on a weekly basis now we get new terminologies in terms of what might transport you. And it's sort of hard to keep up, right? Even for someone in the industry. So I just wanted to kind of highlight some key points here and bring those to you guys and have everybody extrapolate on those.
Well, we
So it very much talks about the last mile, and being able to kind of look at how the last mile has changed as our cities have sort of evolved, and that being, in today's urban scape, we're primarily skyscrapers all over the place now. You still have cities that expand, I think, on a horizontal axis, but that's an area that's probably in countries where the space is available to do so. But where it's limited, you have, I would say, a boundary in terms of how far you can probably go. And yes, sort of brings us to this point of the term itself, which is vertical urban mobility. I think there's a part of this article also that looks at not just the energy and the solutions itself, but also urban air mobility, which is something that I'm a part of. And I think it's a good way for me to also introduce the industry itself, and not just I would say leave it hanging at just a concept. Uh, I think with regards to how we're building our cities, and I think in corroboration to the article itself, you're looking at new formats of transportation to take you, let's say, up and down, not just on a I would say on a vertical axis and as well as a horizontal axis, because people actually are living in so many different kinds of sort of situations. Um, I'm not sure if my network's dropping out, guys, by the way.
Oh
Just
no,
just
your
wanted to
audio is
You're good to
clear.
go. Yeah, everything's
Oh,
great.
oh, brilliant.
So,
Oh, that's
hey, Mike,
fantastic.
if I could jump in, I'd love to, just so I feel like some of the things they reference in this article are new. Some of them are really not. I mean, the concept of the 15-minute city strategy, I mean, folks have been doing that, I think, for a while, at least in the US. I know a friend of mine, I'm looking at Cameron's name, I think it was my girlfriend's neighborhood in Alexandria, Virginia was called Cameron Station, actually. And, we've seen these pop up, right, where there's all these townhouses, maybe they're 3 stories high with units at every level. And then, you've got your little grocery store there, your gym, everything within a 15-minute walk. That's the 15-minute city strategy concept. They have little shuttles to take them to the Pentagon or wherever they work, different parts of the area of DC or Virginia. I think what's novel here are some of the ways that the infrastructure is becoming vertical, like things I
Yeah,
didn't think about. I thought the Copenhagen, they have these bicycle bridges. Not a shock for Copenhagen. There's a lot of bike riding there. Very healthy people. Um, you know, all this stuff costs money. I think it's a great idea. It's so much healthier. A lot more community is fostered by these concepts. It's just a matter of, is there the will, to do it. I think I'd love to hear, Cam's thoughts.
Well, what's interesting as you're talking about this is we've lived in Venice, California, for the last kind of 6-ish plus years, and one of the reasons we moved to Venice, believe it or not, was we could walk everywhere. Everything was right there, and so but I needed to be close to a central airport for lots of reasons, mostly business and such. And so we made a family decision to cut down on the amount of travel and for us to live in like a center where we could just walk and do everything. And then during COVID, we actually moved to our summer cabin up in a little place called Bowen Island, Vancouver, British Columbia, and we haven't left for the last year and a half. It's just so amazing. But so we're on this tiny little island up here, and there's only like 3,000 or 3,500 people on it. But we spend more on gas, more time running around, going to appointments, all that type of stuff than we ever did when we lived in Los Angeles. So like a real live example of this 15-minute city thing where you don't have to use cars and all the rest of it. Really, like our life is so much less convenient. Now, there's lots of benefits to living on a little island, but it is very, very interesting. Because I live in an area where it's very environmentally conscious, and when I really kind of put the numbers on paper, we lived a smaller carbon footprint as a family when we lived in Los Angeles than we do here. So I think there's a lot to be said for it, and I think there's a lot of discovery yet that's going to happen, certainly in this area.
It's interesting just even talking about how you can feel it, right? That you were able to walk to places and that kind of had a better impact on your life. There's a lot of like social reasons for that, or evolutionary social reasons for that too, right? There's been a lot. You've heard kind of rise online of people talking about kind of courtyard communities or court markets, walkable squares. There's an entire YouTube channel dedicated to basically just hating on roads and promoting bike structures in cities, and how this kind of changes the social landscape. So not only is it an energy efficiency thing, it's also how do people interact, and how does that affect community outcomes. So that I think that we're actually thinking about this now vertically. How do you maintain that? That's an interesting twist, right? Because if you're thinking vertical, you have to be thinking vertical because of scale and population density, right? You have to alleviate those concerns. But are those addressing the social communal concerns, or is it kind of it's not going to be able to?
I mean, in a weird way, it's sort of forcing you into a corner to kind of innovate and disrupt, which I think is interesting. I think it's always interesting looking at this in sections of the world, because in the West it's so different, and in India it's so different. I can't walk anywhere. Like, I don't get that option, right? From where I'm staying, if I need to go access something close by, it's still decently far away in most cases, and it's not precisely safe altogether. So, you're left with various different other concerns and elements that come in via the culture and the country itself. And it sort of makes it interesting in terms of, if I were to put forth the question in terms of what do you expect as a transportation solution that could be standardized across these different areas, because that's also a key element to being able to be energy efficient, not just from the point of view of utilizing the transport, but even building the transport altogether. The more standardized it is, the better it is altogether, because you can probably reduce the amount involved in it. I guess that was the point of the article. There are so many different questions and so many different verticals to get into, that we can never really stop talking about it. I think specifically, just a key point on urban air mobility altogether, I think there is an aspect to say that our transportation system altogether, and whether it's public or private, it doesn't really matter. It's not evolved as far as it could have evolved. And there is an argument that says that over the course of 100 years, where we're very much still either on four wheels, or we're still very much on the basic principles of aviation. And it's nice, I think, in today's day and age, to see that being innovated upon. And that's primarily because of the abilities we have today as a society. In terms of the technology available to be able to do these things, the change in propulsion, everything is go green, go electric, whether it's all the way from your smallest format of mobility to possibly your largest, right? Could be a Boeing or an Airbus or a large commercial airliner like that. And that also offers an interesting sort of approach in terms of really disrupting what we already have rather than just create something completely new altogether. And I think the most critical point is how we design our infrastructures, I think. How our cities are built. They've been built, so in Europe, for example, they're just built over years and years of history. You can't really modify any of them. And this is something that I tend to, with my job, get into a lot, especially with where can you land aircraft in a city. There are things that I can't change, and there are places that I can't, and then there are places I can adapt. So just as soon as you can have, like, back to your point, Mike, about having these squares and courtyards, you can have them at different levels of a city, and you would essentially then be using space far more effectively than we do today, and facilitating interaction or social interaction or communal interaction at so many different levels. If I go back to the 60s and say you had the drive-in theater in the US, which you still may very much have in different places, as a culture thing. That can be brought about in so many newer and interesting ways, where you just have flying taxis sort of land on rooftops of buildings where they just sit and watch movies.
Oh my gosh,
And
that's
I
so
love
cool.
yeah.
And by the way, I have to say, Vidyut, you kind of glossed over. I know we were like, oh, make your bio short, but Vidyut works for Bellwether Industries, and they're making flying cars. So we were talking beforehand about how I met his colleague Zen at AUVSI Exponential, and I saw, the design image of that of your vehicle, and it is so cool. It just reminds me of Speed Racer, but like in the air. I'm like,
I
oh,
think
this is.
yeah, absolutely. I think that was like very purposefully done. I mean, we have to make the things look good because we want people to kind of take those on board. There's no point, in getting something that's not going to look good. I don't believe in that at all. But it has to work well, I think, more importantly. Um, yeah.
So I
Cam,
was just gonna say, sign me up for your fly-in movie in the sky. I'm all in for that.